Hey everyone, welcome to Mythology Explained. In today's video, we're going to dive into a very interesting question, which is whether Greek gods can be brought to death when people no longer believe in them. Let's get into it. Now, I can't say for certain whether a lack of worship can result in a Greek god plunging through death's gates, passing on to the next world or being erased by oblivion, but I can say that there are two myths, the Greek creation myth and the myth of the Great Flood, that serve as very strong arguments, showing Greek gods to be immune to death in a world devoid of exaltation and worship being paid to them. Let's take a look at these myths. The Greek creation myth rejects the notion that gods die when no one believes in them because, simply put, it describes gods existing before humans. At this point, you might be asking yourself, what does this have to do with anything? Well, if gods existed before there were humans to worship them, then doesn't it follow that gods would be equally unaffected if there were humans who didn't worship them, as was the case when pagan religions were eventually superseded by monotheism? I feel like it's fair to extrapolate from the Greek creation myth, which shows gods to be unaffected by a lack of worship, and conclude that gods would be equally unaffected by a lack of worship resulting from absolute disregard by humanity. The second myth germane to this discussion is the Great Flood that Poseidon and Zeus conjure to drown the earth and eradicate humanity. In this myth, by Zeus's estimation, mankind had degenerated to such a deplorable state that they have become irredeemable. Salvation was no longer an option, wickedness and moral bankruptcy were rampant. The only effective course of action left was to efface humanity from existence, to scour humanity from the face of the earth. The rising waters that swallowed continents whole nearly snuffed out every human life. Only two people were saved. Pyrrha was the daughter of the second-generation titan Epimetheus and of Pandora. She married Deucalion, who was the son of the second-generation titan Prometheus, who, in turn, gave Pyrrha and Deucalion advanced warning of the impending flood. They took refuge aboard a boat, and the sight of them, forsaken and forlorn amongst a sea of freshly gorged-on plains, valleys and mountains, moved Zeus, who relented and allowed humanity to be repopulated. This is a severely truncated version of this myth. Almost everything is glossed over, but despite this, it performs its function, which is to raise this question: why would Zeus eradicate humanity, which he basically did, only two people survived, when his own life was tied to the worship paid to him by the race he just virtually exterminated? If Greek mythology has taught us anything, it's that Zeus is supremely self-interested, so committing to a course of action, and more, an entirely avoidable course of action, that would lead to his own death, really doesn't seem consistent with his character, which was that of an unabashed, incorrigible hedonist. Therefore, given Zeus's willingness to end the human race, it seems reasonable to assume that the end of humanity wouldn't have meant the end of the gods, which of course means that the gods can live without worship. Whether you think the creation myth and the myth of the Great Flood culminate into an argument against Greek gods perishing once humanity ceases to believe in them boils down to if you think this extrapolation is fair. If gods continue to live when humans don't exist to worship them, then by extension, this must mean that humans existing but not worshipping would also not affect whether gods live or die in Greek mythology. So what do you think? Do you think this is a fair argument, or do you think that there's a meaningful difference between people not existing and people existing but not worshipping, as they both pertain to whether a lack of belief can kill a god? And that's it for this video. If you enjoyed the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. As always, leave your video suggestions down below.